Never in my projection did I see myself as a principal secretary. But God had a sense of humor. One day my son comes up with an orphan. But what happens when I'm tired of being an advocate? Where do I go? What will be next? So there's a lot of things you have to balance. The maritime sector actually does make the world move. My children knew that if I'm not there, my image is there. In November I was reappointed.
As the CEO?
No. In government as the PS now.
As the PS.
I wanted really to retire at the Port Authority.
Let me just try, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
I applied, I remember I applied the last day. My name is Nancy Karigithu, Principal Secretary, State Department for Shipping and Maritime, and this is the boss lady.
The warmth on her smile, the huge welcome, twinkling eyes, and yet a woman who truly means business is the impression I got when I first entered her office. She gave me that feeling of a mother's touch. This woman has literally stood amongst men both at home and at work, working with presidents and the who's who in the world, and she does it, or rather she does that, with so much strength, poise, and grace. Who am I talking about? Mrs. Nancy Karigithu, the current Principal Secretary, State Department for Shipping and Maritime in the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Born and bred in Meru, Kenya, Nancy did her early education. She shifted to the coastal area for her secondary education. It is during her early ages that her interest in maritime began, and she attests this to one lady, her godmother, Miss Edna. She went to the University of Nairobi to pursue a bachelor's degree in law and got a master's degree in international maritime law from the IMO International Maritime Law Institute in Malta. She served as the Director General of Kenya Maritime Authority, as the chair of the International Maritime Authority, and she currently sits on the board of Governors of the World Maritime University based in Malmö, Sweden. She was involved in the setting up and launch of the Association of Women in the Maritime Sector in Eastern and Southern Africa, WAMESA, where she served for 2 terms as a chairperson and now sits on the Governing Council. Before her present appointment, Mrs. Karigithu was working as a short-term legal expert for the European Union, that's the EU, a project critical maritime routes aimed at enhancing maritime situational awareness in the Indian Ocean. As a trailblazer, Mrs. Karigithu also organized the first National Maritime Conference, which took place in February 2015. But before we get to her story, let's take a look at the history and background of maritime in the country. The history of maritime dates back to 2004, when the Kenya Maritime Authority was established in order to oversee the transfer of responsibilities in shipping matters from the Kenya Ports Authority to an autonomous state corporation. In 2006, it was legally constituted under the Kenya Maritime, with its mandate being to regulate, coordinate, and oversee maritime affairs in the country. A new version was amended in 2009, the Merchant Shipping Act. The Act provides the basis for addressing maritime safety, security and training, as well as opening opportunities for investment in water transport and related. Kenya lies on the direct path of one of the busiest international shipping lanes in the world, with estimated 50 vessels of various types operating there at any given time. These vessels were very likely to be oil tankers ferrying the commodity from the rich fields in the Middle East countries, varying in displacement from 50 to 250,000 metric tons. With the coastline measuring over 600 kilometers from Tanzania in the south to Somalia in the north, Kenya has always been a major player in maritime affairs, extending back to the 5th century. A proud mother of a family of boys, she shows me proudly her family picture full of men.
You are the only woman or the only girl in your family.
Oh,
So
yes.
how is that for you?
Okay, how's that for me? God decided.
God decided.
Okay, I'll tell you my story.
All right,
On
there
that
you
one.
go. Thank
Okay.
you.
To be honest with you, I never imagined a mother of boys because I loved girls.
Oh,
I loved the fact that, I imagined I could become a friend to my daughter. So I always imagined my firstborn would be a girl, and I'd dress her in lace and ribbons and such, and she'd be my friend by the time she's a teenager. And she would also help me, to raise the brothers. But in my idea, the firstborn was a girl. But God had other plans for me, and He gave us a son. And well, there's always a second opportunity because we were not stopping there. Then I had a very good relationship with my doctor then, and I remember when I was expecting, we were expecting our second baby. I asked him because he knew what I imagined, and he told me, "Oh, Nancy, I can bet all my money there's another boy." I was like, honestly, 2 boys in a row? But that was God's plan. And we got a son again. And by the time the third one came, I was like, how?
it's destined.
How
It's
can
destined to
whoever gets 3 children, 3 boys in a row? Not in my family. We have more girls.
Then boys.
But then comes Shiko. Because by then she even had a name. It's going to be a girl.
It's going to be a girl,
But God had a sense of humor.
yeah. He
And
decided
therefore we
on
became
us.
parents to 3 beautiful boys. Fast forward to how many years later, maybe 10. And by that time, I had a very interesting relationship with my children because I believed that you want to teach them values in a society where you don't expect other people to teach them. It's got to be within their home. And Mombasa is a very interesting place because a lot of us wanted to remove our children. That was the trend then. We wanted to remove our children and bring them up country for upper primary. But I was reluctant. We were reluctant. We actually came and looked at schools by the time our first one was getting to class 4 or 5. But we thought, no, we want to spend more time with them. So it's going to be in Mombasa. But then we had to do some readjustment. So we went into the GCE system. We took them to GCE. And we want to teach them that they have to be part of the ecosystem around them. We don't want them to be, I mean, peer influence is a big thing for children.
Yeah,
but we thought with my husband that we want them to learn to live in any kind of circumstances, high, low, everything. And therefore, we wanted them to get used to both sides of the divide. Because in school, they have a different setup. The kind of people who are there. But then also, we wanted them to know that that's not the real thing. We grew up, I used to tell them I grew up in the village. I can live anywhere because life has no guarantees. You never know what tomorrow will be like. And therefore, we used to take them for their birthdays in orphanage. We had old people's home and let them learn to be, what do I say? To be feeling, to have feelings for other people. To be humble and to be part of, to appreciate that they are privileged. That is not a right. And therefore, when you teach children like that, one day my son comes up with no fun. And he tells me, man, he has no help. He doesn't know where to go.
Oh, wow.
So it turned out that he's a child who needed help. And my children embraced him. Long and short, we went to court and applied for guardianship and he became one of us. So that's how we have four boys.
A woman so humble and down to earth and does the work just right. In a government that has very few female leaders, I try and understand how she got to the position she is right now.
Never in my projection did I see myself as a principal secretary. I never imagined. But it came after a long period of work. Like I said, I went to Kenya Ports Authority sometime in my career, early career. I think it was after 5 years. I got the job at KPA. I became a litigation lawyer. I loved joining. I wanted really to retire at the Port Authority. But sadly, within my second year, I was like, no, I'm not cut out for this. And I wanted to do something different. Now, when you're in that position, you're a lawyer, I remember one of the things I used to ask myself, okay, I have an option now. If I don't have a job, I can always open a legal practice. I can be a practicing lawyer, I can be an advocate and set up shop. But what happens when I'm tired of being an advocate? Where do I go? What will be next? But by 6 years, that was in 1995 January, I knew this is it and I'm leaving. By that time I had already earned my master's in international maritime law, and I went out and opened shop. My husband supported me as a practicing advocate, but God has a sense of humor because I'm wondering, what will I do after I get tired of practice, or what will be my exit here? But the next year, the International Maritime Organization had started a program of getting, strengthening maritime administration in Africa. That was one of them. Getting in developing countries, basically. But they also wanted to help African nations, set up legal frameworks for the maritime sector. I've specialized in maritime law. I went to the IMO, International Maritime Institute, which was geared actually to helping the developing countries to get the technical knowledge. And I'm in private practice. I'm no longer in government, so I'm available. So I was recruited as a consultant. Actually, my first job as a consultant, assistant consultant, was to Kenya. So in 2004, it became imperative that the roles had to be separated because of developments in the international maritime setup. With the 9/11, now security became a big thing. And that was, the risk came from aviation, and therefore it could as well come from the maritime. And therefore the push from the developed world to have the roles separated and clear roles in terms of overseeing maritime security between operators and the government as a member state. And therefore Kenya Maritime Authority was formed in June 2004. And when it came to look for a CEO, a few of my friends asked me, why don't you apply for the job? You know, it's what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll contribute to the growth of the sector.
Yeah.
From a different perspective. But I was like, really? I already left, what? But anyway,
You just try, yeah. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
I applied, I remember I applied the last day. And did the interview, and lo and behold, the Lord grants what you ask for.
You
I got the
became
job.
CEO.
I became the CEO.
So you were there for
9
years.
Yeah,
As the CEO.
as a CEO.
Uh-huh.
Until May 2015. That's what my parents said. I'm ready for the next adventure in my life.
Okay.
So May 2016 I left, and I started doing my other things. By the way, I started consulting again. It just came, it followed me. And I did it from May, June, July, August, September. November I was reappointed.
As the CEO.
No, in government as the PS now.
As the PS.
Yeah.
How did that appointment come about? You tell us what happens. Did you just get a phone call? Like what is the process?
Okay, by the time I was leaving, in May there was an advert in the papers.
Okay.
Public Service Commission advertised jobs for PSs. I had applied, but now when I left, there was no word, and I left and started doing other things. Then it was announced on the radio. In fact, I remember I just left Kisumu with UNESCO. They were doing this term, mentorship for girls, and I'd gone to speak to the girls of careers in the maritime sector. On my way back in Nairobi, that's when the announcement was made.
Yes, this woman does not just climb up alone, she carries the other women with her in the sector of maritime. We take a short break, and when we come back, we take a look at her on the ground. How is her female voice heard?